Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar on the digital parasite epidemic and the ways to defend against it. I am Süleyman Hacıoğlu, and I will be your moderator/speaker today. So before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping notes. Today's session will run approximately 25 minutes, and this webinar is being recorded right now, and we will share the recording afterward in case you want to visit or pass it along to colleagues. So let me share my slides. Okay. So I am joined by two incredible experts who will help us navigate, realities of digital parasites and the risk they pose in today's threat landscape. We are truly grateful that they have accepted our invitation to speak at this webinar. Their deep expertise and real-world experience are what will make this session especially insightful and valuable for us. Candid West is with us today. Candid, could you please briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. And yeah, thanks for having me. I would probably kind of describe myself as an EDR veteran because I have been working on anti-malware for more than 25 years by now. So not just cybersecurity, but really analyzing malware, analyzing threats, and going for the defense, right? So I spent 17 years building up the Symantec Security Response Lab, analyzing small to big threats. And then I helped develop the EDR product from Acronis. And now currently I'm the principal security advocate for XR Lab's advanced email security lab here in Switzerland. So I would say I've seen my fair share of threats, which is also why I love the Red Report, right? Because it has technical details, which are often missed. And it also gives you some guidance on what you can actually do. So I'm more than happy to share my view on that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Candid. You're wonderful, and we are really happy to have you here. And joining us, from PICOS is Paolo Cimnaghi. Paolo, can you please introduce yourself as well?
Sure. So this is Paolo Cimnaghi. I'm manager of security solution architects here in PICOS from the last 4 years. I also have a background with the system integrators and consultancy company from my past experiences. And today I will try to bring the experience gained from the customers, to help anyone to benefit from it. So thank you.
Thank you, Paolo. We are so great that, you accepted our invitation to speak at this webinar. Thank you again. So our agenda includes a brief overview of the Red Report 2026 findings, of course, but we will, mainly focus on the stealthy digital parasite and how adversarial exposure validation helps organizations become, more proactive. And by the way, you can, feel free to submit your questions during the webinar. If we have time, we will answer them at the end. And if not, I will, make it sure that we will respond to you via email. Okay, let's go. For the Red Report 2026, we use, of course, automation because it's impossible to collect, over 1.1 million malicious files and, related metadata from open source repositories, and Sandbox analysis sandboxes. We then, normalize the behavioral data and cluster it into similar patterns and extracted over 50 million real-world attack actions. And each action was mapped directly to the latest MITRE ATT&CK framework based on the consistent procedural evidence. And in the end, this allowed PICOS Labs to identify the top 10 most widely used MITRE attack techniques observed in the wild across 2025. Okay. So this year, the top 10 list starts with familiar techniques like process injection and command line scripting. The process injection for this third consecutive year holds the #1 spot on the list. This dominance signals that the blending in is more now critical rather than breaking in. But what really stands out, the shifts in the top 10 list ranking, credentials from password stores is now #3 and appearing in 1 in 4 malware samples we collected throughout 2025. This data alone suggests that identity theft is not a preliminary objective, but rather the objective itself. So even more surprising, we have virtualization and Sandbox evasion. It has entered the top 4 for the first time. I mean, this is a massive shift. And what's even more shocking that we didn't even see this technique in the previous 2 reports, Red Report 2025 and 2024. And attackers are also getting stealthier, hiding their C2 traffic within legitimate application layer protocols, especially, cloud services, and techniques like, boot or logon auto start execution shows us that the intention is still clear, hide well and survive reboots. I mean, but the real deal, real eyebrow raiser is the masquerading technique, because, after years of being absent from the top 10, it's back. And I have been PICUS for like almost 4 years. It means that I have co-authored like 4 red reports now, and it's my first time seeing this masquerading technique on the top 10. And on the other hand, we have remote access tool technique, and we saw that actual attackers are, using remote access hardware like KVMs over IP, with the intention that, bypass endpoint agents altogether, rendering the EDR visibility. And, there is ransomware. Data encrypted for impact is still on the list, but it's now ranked last. And it's a clear sign of a shift. And when you look at this picture, when you look at these findings, 80% of top 10 techniques focus on evasion, persistence, and stealthy command and control, and, privilege escalation. So this is why, as PICUS Labs, we decided to name this year's theme as digital parasites, because malware now wants to crawl in and stay there, and no intention to go anywhere. And instead of taking everything at once, attackers are increasing extract small amounts of high value critical data over time while staying under the radar. And at this point, Kenan, I really want to ask you a question. As a principal security advocate, looking at this top 10 list, what do you think these shifts in this ranking tell us about how adversaries are thinking today?
Yeah, looking at it, it's clear that the attackers are adopting as well and evolving, right? They probably read the red report as well, and kind of it's the cat and mouse game, right? They learn kind of how they are blocked and detected, and then they try to evade it. So I think it shouldn't come as a surprise that they, of course, know that malware analysts, security solutions analyze malware, right? It's kind of in the name. So they know that there are sandboxes, and now you have agentic AI kind of automating malware analysis and stuff. So they, of course, want to detect this. And then if they know they're on a virtual machine or sandbox, they basically just do nothing, or even a red herring, do something. But if you're on a real system, they would do something completely different, right? Yeah. And another thing that we've seen is, of course, you mentioned it, kind of disabling security solutions. So in the past, it has already grown. There was the bring your own vulnerable driver to unhook your EDR. We've seen kind of end of last year also the freeze EDR, which kind of blocks it. And we've seen other attackers, they basically just use the classical tool from the support to uninstall the EDR, because some supports actually have a tool without the password, you can uninstall those agents. That's and now crazy. The question comes, would you notice it, right? Would you notice if one of your machine basically does not report back? Maybe the employee is just on vacation, 2 weeks, could happen. Yeah. Maybe it just crashed, or maybe the user itself kind of stopped it because of slowing down, or maybe it's the attacker. So, that's kind of giving you a false sense of security, right? In the end, your mighty dashboard will tell you, hey, all green, right? I haven't seen any of those very noisy, disruptive ransomware encryption happening. So nothing bad, nothing to see here. But in the background, it's exactly those digital parasites that you mentioned. They're kind of nibbling at your data, exfiltrating maybe just 1 or 2 files an hour, or maybe even a day, maybe just the passwords, right? And then selling it to some initial access brokers. We still see some kind of those smash and grab attacks where they basically go in, kind of steal all your terabytes of data, but that's a very noisy attack. And of course, that usually kind of brings some response and some blocking. So we've seen that they moved exactly to be more stealthy. And for that, you want to be more persistent. And in the end, I mean, they still can do blackmailing, right? They still can extort you and say, hey, if you're not paying me 2 Bitcoins, I'm going to release that data. So that's the non-encryption part of the ransomware. And your backup is not protecting you against this, right? So as in, it's still lucrative for them, and that's happening. And I think the second part that you mentioned, the living off the land or even the stolen credentials, right? That's something that we have seen growing and growing, because the attackers, they don't really need the malware nowadays. They can simply log in with some stolen credentials, maybe brute force it, and then just use legitimate tools, Code Tunnel, AnyDesk. I mean, there's so many tools that you could download, or just use PowerShell, WMI, stuff which is already there to do the malicious, nefarious things.
Legitimate software, yeah.
And I guess now it's the living off the cloud as well, right? As in, it's no longer just on one machine. In the top 10, it shows they're using your SaaS application because that's probably where some of the data is. And very often we still see those are badly configured. So, I mean, it's moving, and probably 2026, I mean, we don't want to scream wolf here, but with all the AI co-pilots and stuff, they might even just log in and ask for the data, right? There have been a few proof of concepts like the Echo leak with Microsoft's Copilot, where just sending an email with some prompt injection is good enough for the attackers to say, hey, give me all the sensitive HR data or your sales data, and please send it to this Dropbox or my email. So it's the invisible threats, right? That's all it is about. And if you're still waiting for the classical malware break-in and kind of the noisy thing happening, you're not seeing the full picture, right? You're missing it. So while you wait for the classical malware break-in, the attacker might already be locked onto your system and probably already exfiltrating data. So I think that's the scary part.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we kind of pushed adversaries to become more stealthier. It's on us, but as you said, it's catch a mouse game. And great insights, by the way. Thank you so much. I mean, by the way, last year's report, like 2025, we collected malware data throughout 2024, and we saw that there was 13 info-stealer malware, and we kind of expected it to see, throughout 2025 as well. And now you're saying it, they are, more into stealing data, rather than just, being loud, smash and grab. Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, surely nothing is happening mentality, there is no fire alarm, there is no smoke alarm, we are safe kind of mentality is not working anymore, just like the case with ransomware, actually. So, I mean, the risk of ransomware has never left the chat, has never left the room, right? But its encryption signal is fading away, so much so that we saw 38%, year-over-year decrease in attackers' use of data encrypted for impact technique. And, I want to ask a question here to Paolo. With the decline in encryption-based attacks and the report showing that 90% of the collected malware is showing, application layer protocol, use of application layer protocol techniques, do you think the drop in encryption is directly correlated with this application layer protocol technique, including the heavy use of cloud APIs for stealthy C2 traffic?
Thanks, Hila, for the question. Yes, I think that, and it's more than this. It's actually a shift in the way the attackers are actually, applying their tactics. No, so most probably the reason is that in the last years we observed a rise in the encryption-based techniques usage from the attackers. No. This has been for several years, and of course the companies and the defenders team, the security teams in general, pushed a lot, invested time and resources in improving the data resiliency. So making backups, validating the restore of the data is actually effective, and the data is there. This increased a lot of the resiliency overall. So the attackers, now encrypting the data are not so efficient, because the customer can simply restore the data and give the data back. So still the technique is there, but we observe this strong decrease. And at the same time, we saw an increase in the evasive techniques. No, so this is of course testifying that the attackers are trying to enter in the network, in the company systems, stay silent, be resilient, lasting for a long time, and trying to regularly, steal the data, blending maybe the exfiltration with legitimate traffic. We observed OpenAI Assistant API, being exploited for this reason, the traffic. Then there is also another aspect. The ransomware is something that has been really much, studied, observed, and there are very much evolved detection techniques and platforms who are there to make detection. The SOC team is very much, ready to raise the flag whenever there is a sort of alert triggering that there is some kind of encryption in the system. So it's everything is paid off to decreasing the number of tentative to encrypt the data and stealing them in a hidden way. Then, of course, the attackers will be able to extort money to the customers because the data are in their hands. But everything changed now. Of course, it's much more difficult than in the past. But this requires an evolution. So that's my point of view.
Yeah, I agree so much, and thank you for your insights. I mean, our defenders have improved and developed so much that the attackers' business logic, has changed. It's clear that now they are playing for longer game with more monetization options and, less risk for getting detected. Again, thank you so much for your insights. Okay, now I want to shift our focus to something else that we refer to as Picos Labs, self-aware malware. Yeah, virtualization and Sandbox evasion has just surged back to top 10 list after, as I stressed before, being absent like 2 previous reports. And in fact, now 1 in 5 malware we collected was trying to fingerprint its own environment. And one interesting case was coming from Lumma Command and Control C2, a malware. It was the version 4, malware version 4. So now I'm gonna yap a little bit. I am sorry about it, but I am really into this stuff like trigonometric Turing test because I am coming from a mathematical background and I really wanted to, explain this to you guys, to our audience. So mouse movement tracking has been one of the primary sandbox fingerprinting technique we observed for years, and malware authors are, using it to determine if their payload will run in a live environment or within a automated analysis pipeline. And however, instead of just checking whether the mouse moves at all in the analyzed environment, Lumma does something I would like to call trigonometric Turing test, and I have to admit it's pretty cool. It captures 5 consecutive cursor points that you see on the screen using the get cursor position function. I mean, it treats those points like vectors and calculates the distance between those vectors using the standard Euclidean distance formula that you see here on the screen. And basically, it is making sure that the cursor actually moves across the screen, not teleporting, from point A to point B. But of course, the malware actually doesn't stop here. It also uses the dot product formula to calculate the angle between those line segments that you see here, those movement vectors. And after that, it compares each angle to a hard-coded threshold of, 45 degrees. If each angle is, below or lesser than 25 degrees, the malware decides, okay, this looks human. So it's looking for, natural flow of a human hand. If the movements are too sharp, too perfect, too straight, it stays dormant. It's not, drop the payload, nothing happens. But this is doing it because automated sandboxes often generate, perfect straight line, low context cursor paths, human motion. Even if you attempt to make it perfect, it's going to contain, natural micro curves and gradual directional transitions. So when the malware sees these shallow curves that people, you and I, we do without even thinking, that's a green light for malware to just, drop the payload. So by mathematically evaluating curvature and smoothness, this Luma C2 malware just adds a probabilistic filter to determine whether it's operating in a real live user environment or if it's in a sandbox. So again, I mean, honestly, coming from a mathematical background, I am just both annoyed and impressed by their logic and their creativity. So Candid, I want to ask you a question, because you even consider yourself EDR veteran. We respect you so much, and I am really into this question. With self-aware malware on the rise, do you think these evolving tactics will force organizations to rethink their threat detection approaches? I mean, people are really curious about that. If this knowledge that we see right now, can we weaponize this knowledge against attackers? You are an EDR veteran. Again, I am really curious about your answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of the cat and mouse game that you mentioned, right? And we shouldn't underestimate the attackers. They are creative, right? I mean, yes, some of them make silly mistakes, which of course allows us to easily block them, but some of them have some good creative ideas, right? So self-aware malware definitely means that as a defender, you kind of need to shift a little bit the focus, less on kind of the small artifacts, but rather kind of more on the behavior or anomaly detections, right? Kind of trying to eliminate and disrupt the attacker from moving to the next stage. Yeah. And I think it's clear, right? They are hiding. They're getting better at hiding. I remember a few years ago, we've seen that malware was basically on the Sandbox checking how many recent files do you have in Microsoft Word? Because if you open a document, right, it stays in the recent documents. Yeah. And of course, many of those sandboxes have 0 recent documents, which, as you say, is not a real system, right? Nobody has non-documents, otherwise they wouldn't use Microsoft Word. Or we've seen some other malware which checked how many CPUs you have and what your screen resolution is. And if you only have one CPU and maybe 4 gigs of RAM and 640 to 480 screen resolution, nobody wants to work on such a system, right? That definitely seems like a very ancient one. I mean, there might be still in some OT manufacturing, so I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's not your real average normal user. And yeah, we have, of course, started on the security side to detect those things, right? Because there's an API that will check how many CPUs you have, will check your screen resolution. And it appears now we have to learn about trigonometry, right? And kind of going about, does anyone check your browser detection by checking where the cursor is? So I think those are definitely things that we can and probably will integrate to kind of be better prepared and detect things. But it also shows, I mean, we're getting into that AI versus AI battle, or let's say more realistic, automation versus automation, right? So the attackers will use some techniques and the defender will use some, and both are getting smarter. So I think it has to be something where we disrupt it. As you said, we disrupted on the ransomware Paolo mentioned, right? It is very noisy if you start encrypting data. That's usually, everyone will notice it, right? And it's very easy to detect by heuristics if you're trying to encrypt data. Now they just exfiltrate it because they know your backup won't protect you and you can still kind of earn some money. So it's about disrupting the next steps. And giving you one example, I mean, yes, it is bad if the malware is stealing your data, but if you can block it from sending that data to the internet by isolating the system, it's probably less of an impact, right? It's still bad, but the impact is lesser. So we need to think about kind of the cyber attack kill chain, right? And try to go and block further, because let's be frank, or candid, as in my name, EDR will not protect against 100% of the attacks, as antivirus didn't in the past either, right? So you need to kind of assume that someone will log in, find some zero-day vulnerability, maybe through AI or whatever, but now you can monitor the behavior and you can make it harder for them. And harder means you slow them down, but also giving you more chances of actually detecting it and then blocking the hyper impact. Because as we said, if you can block them from selling your credentials on the underground market, that's already a big win, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
kind of in the long run helping you not to get compromised by someone who might be able to uninstall your EDR and start the encryption and everything. So, I mean, to sum it up, right, I'd say even if attackers are hiding, and we know they are, if you can eliminate their ability to kind of run the full attack kill chain, that's helping, because that's meaning you kind of isolate them. They're getting stuck in one place where they can do less harm. So yeah, there is hope. Don't give up the fight, right? But you have to learn about the techniques so that you know, does your solution actually detect about those things?
Yeah, I agree so much. That's a great point. I mean, some people get really upset about the findings of the red report, but I always repeat myself in a boring way. The report doesn't say that it's the end of the world for security people and organizations, because it's not. It doesn't suggest that we are powerless against this, stealthy digital parasite type of malware. At the end, we are just trying to eliminate the attacker's ability to move inside and, break their kill chain. So it lets us, proactively disrupt their toolkits, arsenal, and cyber kill chain. Yeah. So thank you so much, by the way, Candid. Great insights as well. Now, Paolo, I want to ask you a question. With the digital parasite idea we have been discussing, we have self-aware malware, we have masquerading, we have process injection, application layer protocols, hidden command and control traffics. How do you think organizations, should their security strategies to handle these threats more effectively?
Yeah, actually, digital parasite is not just a buzzword, as we said, and we keep on repeating. It's a shift in the mindset of the attackers. So it's clear that there has been a very strong evolution in the way they are, creating damage to the organizations. They are much more stealthy and persistent. As of now, they are hidden. But actually, this is simply showing they are evolving. No, evolving means. They can make attackers much more effective. And the same has to be done from the defender side. So as we say, the report shouldn't make us angry, but actually should give us something to work on and try to improve also ourselves from a defender's perspective. So in this case, what have we observed, and what Picus is actually being, let's say, giving a tool for, is not just to sit down and wait for an alert to be triggered. So we can still rely, of course, and we have to rely on the EDRs, the CM, and all the tools that are there monitoring the systems and controlling the traffic and so on. But it's not enough, to rely on the standard way of making prevention and detection. We really have to validate every single layer of the security architecture within our organization. As said by Candid, we can, let's say, allow the attackers to be successful only in certain part of the attack chain, while preventing them, for example, to move laterally. So what if they can encrypt a data in a single machine and not being able to, spread across the network? The damage is much more, decreased. So with Picus, actually, we can we are doing exactly this. So we give a solution, a platform that makes you able to validate every single layer of the architecture from a prevention perspective, from a detection perspective. Of course, when you run the simulation, the attacks in your environment, you can validate overall your security resiliency. But thanks to the integrations that we have with many platforms, many detection platforms, you can also see exactly where the attack has been prevented, at which layer, so that you can work on the other layers and improve them. We have plenty of remediation suggestions that you can really leverage in an easy ways, also through automation, to improve, this portion. By the way, I also have a couple of examples coming from the customers, which are really testifying how the effectiveness of validating your security controls in a continuous manner is really helping. For example, there has been one of our customers in the banking sector, very big one, with a Sandbox, a Sandbox system, protecting their inbound traffic on the email security solution, which was actually validating it thanks to Picus. And immediately came evident that the advanced type of techniques, the one we mentioned with the aim to evade the sandbox systems, so to check your idle time, to check your memory usage and stuff like that, was actually passing through. So it's not that the sandbox was really not working. It was working, but it was missing the advanced portion of the attack, which basically means a very big hole, right? So it's cybersecurity is not only quantitative type of job, it's actually qualitative type of job. So we need to really check the small pieces of the things. So immediately they come to know this big hole, and they have been able to fine-tune the systems, and now they are very much up to the expectation. The resilience is very high, and they are happy, and everyone is happy. There has been another case of another customer, redesigning their data center architecture, in particular the piece of the network front facing with internet. So they are making several layers of inspections of the traffic coming, connecting the systems to the internet. And after this redesign, they missed somehow a piece of the network which was really, important. But this came immediately evident because, let's say, being them running constant simulation every day on that channel, they immediately got to know that the prevention dropped. So try to think if this constant verification of your prevention wasn't there, what could have been the impact in the real environment? You don't notice it if you don't test it on a regular basis. So let's say this is just a couple of examples. I could have many of them, but just to try to push the message that validating on a regular basis and for all the security layers is something that can really make the difference at the end of the day in your security ecosystem. So that's my thought.
Thank you so much, Paolo. These are such great key points, because what your examples really show, there's a difference between there's a gap between feeling secure and being actually secure. So a lot of teams actually believe that something is hardened, configured correctly, working as expected just because it's deployed. They see that it's not working until they actually test it. So an IPS that wasn't properly configured after data center change, or a sandbox evasive threat quietly bypassing their secure email gateway. So these aren't actually edge cases as some people think. They are real gaps that only become visible because some decided to just validate it instead of assuming it. So I mean, it seems like we talk about only bad stuff, but no, what's the solution? Because as Paolo said, we are not here to only talk about depressing stuff, but the automation and continuous validation is actually what's underlying these proactive methods. Gartner has regrouped these approaches under this umbrella term called adversarial exposure validation. This refers to continuous and automated ways for organizations to figure out their most critical and exploitable exposures. And we can think of this umbrella term as an that consists of two key tools, breach and attack simulation and automated penetration testing. So WAS continuously simulates real attack techniques across their adversarial kill chain, right, to validate the effectiveness of their implemented security solutions without, causing any disruption. It's a safe practice. You can think of these security controls as, firewalls, web application firewalls, your CM, your EDR, your XDR, secure email gateways, anything you can name it. So moreover, WAS tools just don't point out that, your defenses are lacking, you are in a bad shape, and it doesn't leave you there troubled. Good return of investment WAS solutions are expected to, provide, ready to apply, single click, all validated mitigation actions that can help you, enhance your both prevention, detection, and response capabilities. This is actually one of the Picus's strongest suites. I can probably say that we can just provide both vendor-specific and vendor-neutral mitigation suggestions to both prevent and detect attacks. And there is actually automated penetration testing, so it simulates attacker behavior to identify exploitable vulnerabilities in real time in your directory environment, like Active Directory. So this practice starts with a certain objective, like domain admin compromise, and runs in a sophisticated way to mimic the actual attacker, its real life goal, with the aim of maximizing the impact. So just like a real attacker would. And finally, because this is this has this repeatable repeatable testing nature, it enables scalable and consistent assessment of your implemented security measures, security policies, trust relationships, and configurations, anything you name it. Yeah, I talk too much because a picture words 1,000 words, they say. So let's do a quick demo to get familiar with these concepts. I will hand this screen to Paolo. Yeah.
Thank you, Sila. Let me share mine. Okay, so I see the image is coming. Okay, perfect. Okay, so how you can really, operationalize the red report, as many of you already, our customers knows, every year after the publication of the red report, we also create dedicated templates to, simulate the top 10 attack techniques. This year, these are the 5 new templates which we have released. This one especially is the top 10 techniques one, where with a very little amount of threats, you can cover and simulate all the techniques in your environment in a very short time. But also you can see APT, Red Report 2026 with a focus on APT groups or Windows and Linux endpoint, or in general for malware. I do not really want to disclose or spoiler everything today, because in a couple of weeks I'm going to hold a demo session, a demo webinar dedicated to this part. I will show you how to run simulation in the proper manner, covering the top 10 attack techniques. This is, for example, something that we will go through. Like I did in this case also today, I simulated all of them, and I have evidences and results from prevention and detection perspective. For example, the Sandbox evasion one, the one we have really much deep and dive today. You see my situation is really bad. I am blocking quite everything, but just one. Yeah. So I will show you. Please book that webinar as well. It will be really straightforward, really operational. I will show you how to run the simulation, how to make an interpretation of the findings, and how to approach the remediation part. I will show you how to create an objective to really cover this portion thanks to the planner, and then I will guide you on how to apply the remediations through EDR, through all the systems that you may have in your environment. So this was just a small anticipation of it. That's it, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paolo.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. So we are kind of at the end of our webinar. Let's conclude what we discussed here. So yeah, we are at the era of digital parasite epidemic, and Red Report 2026 data is clear. Static security controls are failing to detect dynamic and behavioral threats. To close this visibility gap, security leaders must pivot from assuming protection to validating resilience. So investments must shift towards continuous security validation to test their implemented defenses against this evasive adversarial behavior. So this practice ensures that your security stack can detect quietest signal of a compromise before an adversary establish a long-term presence or lateral move. So yeah, thank you for being here. But we are not going to end our webinar, because this is the fun parts begin. So we're gonna answer some questions. I'm gonna check the question tab right now. So I see one of the questions, Francesca, if I am not butchering the pronunciation of your name, I'm sorry. So sandboxes should mouse following Bezier curves. That's actually Great question. And yes, you are actually really right. It's actually looking for it, but in a more simpler way, just checking the angles and see if actually there is a, perfect straight line or, movements. So yeah. So there is another question.
It's the evolution, right? As in,
the
defender will learn to be more human, more natural, but we will see in the next red report, they might come up with something new that they detect. So fingers crossed. Yeah.
I am real scared, but also excited to see the, creativity, So yeah, we have another question. I think this is going to be answered by a candidate. The problem that always more is needing a behavior-based detection or an anomaly-based detection, because in general we will use, living off land lol bins.
Yes, I mean, the short answer is yes. And this is not something new, right? Behavior-based detection has been there for 2 decades. I've implemented many of those different versions myself. But yes, we're kind of moving into using more behavior-based detection and anomaly detection, because if on your system, the user, for example, is not using TeamViewer or is not using PowerShell or WMI, then as if someone suddenly starts using it, that's a good indication that something needs to be checked, right? So those things can definitely help. And I don't want to kind of beat on the hype of AI, right? But AI, of course, allows the attackers to generate malware very quickly, although that has been in the past as well, right? There have been kind of toolkits to just point and click and generate your lockbit, ransomware, and other things. But this means that the static signatures, like the classical detection, will no longer work, because of course each generation is different, but the behavior is still the same. As we said, kind of those atomic functions are still the same. And as Paolo said, if you can disrupt those or at least detect and block those, that's definitely going to help. So yeah, don't give up the fight, but yes, double check that you have a good security solution. And probably going back to the demo, right? You need to validate it, because yes, and we have seen all those marketing slides where, oh, we block 100% of the attackers, right? I mean, really, how do you know? And the only thing to know it is that you test it, and you should test it with real attacks. That's exactly what Picus can help you. So yeah, do the test, and then maybe you are blocking 100%, but better know it than just hoping.
Yeah, exactly. You're so right. Thank you. We have other questions. Maybe with false positive case by AI detected, how to check and approve. Well, I don't know how to answer this actually. You guys have any idea?
I mean, yes, it is one issue with AI, right? The hallucinations. I mean, we already had the issue with false positives in the past, and now AI is kind of adding some on top. I think it's just multi-layered defense, so having multiple things, right? And not just rely on one attribute. So a lot of the systems, even AI-based systems, they will use multiple things, right? And say, oh, I see process injection. As we said, it's kind of the top one on the top 10 list for the red report.
Yes.
But then we also see, oh, it's using WMI or PowerShell, which is usually not used on that system, and it's trying to connect to a strange connection in North Korea, well, probably in Russia or somewhere else. And if you add all of those together, the threshold on one might be low, but having those together can help you evade false positives. But yeah, it's also a good question.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah.
And
by the way, to add the thing, AI is of course representing a very big change and evolution. Again, we will see the impact in the next few months and years. And here at Picus, we are working a lot. Our roadmap against validating AI is also very much consistent, and use cases are also a lot. So stay tuned, because with the AI validation, we will also be able to validate your application, custom application against the weaknesses that AI can bring in. basically. So whether you are using as a chatbot or to code, to make some coding, we will be able to validate if the way AI is secured is effective or not. So that's another very important challenge, and we are there. So it's a good starting.
Yeah, thank you, Paolo.
Welcome.
And we have another question for Paolo, I guess. Where are Paolo's simulations run? Are they in a sandbox or real assets?
Okay. Where are they are Sandbox real assets actually.
Yeah.
So the purpose of Picus is actually to run into, let's say, on your golden images on your systems, and the way we execute simulations is safe, in the sense that, for example, we don't really destroy the system, but everything is done with the purpose to validate the effectiveness of the security control. Let's say you download a malicious file. If the file is blocked or not blocked, then in any case we clean it up and we didn't detonate it. Or for example, if we during our simulation in the operating system, in the attack scenario, in the endpoint attack scenarios, for example, if we change a registry key, we roll it back. Or if let's say we execute mimikatz, we then delete it and we delete all the evidences. So the way the attacks are built is completely safe, and you can run it with the aim and the purpose of validating the security control itself.
Thank you so much, Paolo. I think related to this, there is another question coming from Simon, from the techniques used in the last year as your paratomic scripts to test. What would you consider the possibility of, prevention success will be the zero trust network configuration? For example, proper network lockdown of services or ports to trusted sources only. It's a great question, I guess. Would you like to continue, guys?
Yeah, I can just give a little bit of things. Zero trust is of course a very advanced way of accessing your network, your resources in general, but this is not really preventing anything, no? So for example, in your cloud, you typically use zero trust to access the resources, but typically you access maybe cloud resources. And what about the security controls applied to that cloud environment? So still, is of course a very strong approach, but it isn't really protecting everything, no? In any case. So that's why, again, even in this case, it's very much important to validate. In this case, your cloud infrastructure, the one you are actually accessing through the zero trust, mechanisms.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
I think, as you said, it comes down to the configuration, right? Zero trust is important and can definitely help you, or microsegmentation and things. But if we see that the attackers are just logging in with your credentials, they might already have access to interesting data. Maybe not every data, but already some data. So validating the configuration is tricky, but is important.
Yeah.
Thank you for both of your contributions. I see another question that is kind of related to AI, human in the loop. Yeah, I believe you in human in the loop. Yeah, Candid, maybe you want to explain this. A human expertise is integrated to automated process to improve the logic of AI, let's say.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, right? I think it kind of relates to the false positive questions that we had, because you want to make sure that your security system is not just isolating your Active Directory server or your email server or even something else, right, autonomously, because that could even give more impact than the actual attacker. So very often people just add a human in the loop on top and say, hey, before you do anything, let me kind of do it. And there have been a few kind of stories where even though you said, don't do anything without my approval, the AI bot still did it, right? So again, the proof is in the pudding. Make sure the configuration is good.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, it might work for kind of temporary, but it's not a good long-term solution, because we're coming from the alert fatigue, right? Kind of flooding your SOC with many alerts. Now you're flooding the human in the loop, right? Because he will get lots of things. So that's not really helping. We're trying to get more done with less resources and not kind of needing to have more humans. And the second part is, the whole attack kill chain is kind of condensed and is getting faster and faster. So imagine if it's at 2 o'clock in the morning on, let's say, Friday morning or Saturday morning, right? If you get the alert and say, hey, I think someone is encrypting the files, should I stop it? Should I isolate it?
Yeah.
Well, if you're kind of getting a coffee till you're back 5 minutes later, it might be too late, right? So there has to be a good balance about stop the bleeding, but maybe have something that you can revert back or kind of. So I'm not saying remove all the humans, right? I mean, we still should have a job and there are legitimate things, but it needs to be a good balance about what you can and should automate and where you definitely need a human in the loop. And I think, again, goes down to make your plan, right? Kind of do it and then validate it. Because you might think it's very good, but as we said, attackers are creative. So they might come up with something that you haven't thought of. And unfortunately, you don't want to find this out in a real exercise. You want to have it in a simulation where you can then stop it.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. We have another question, Candid, to you. What about ZTNA that has hardware authentication as well? No hardware present, no credentials will work, he said.
Yeah, so zero trust network access. As I said, I'm definitely a fan. It definitely helps, right? Because me, if I log into my laptop, normally I don't need access to the HR department or the finance system or some other things. So that can already lock down, even if someone hijacks my account. All of those, let's say, additional authentication with hardware token or even kind of some USB dongles can help with the, let's say, stealing of credentials. But again, you have to make sure that it's implemented correctly, because we've seen also a shift that the attackers are less and less stealing your password because people have started to use multi-factor authentication. So they kind of shifted over to just steal your session. Very often, they let you log into the system, your online bank account or whatever, and then they just hijack the session, which might still be valid for a few hours, maybe a few minutes. And very often they will just add something, like, for example, in email, M365, they will just use that session, log in, and add an email forward so that any email that comes in will be forwarded to them. And this is basically all they need, right? So now they don't need to get access later. They can just do a password reset, will receive the email, and probably guess the maiden name of your mother. So yes, the hardware thing can help, but it's not the silver bullet to kind of prevent everything, right? So depending on the system you're trying to block, it's definitely good. But yes, again, think about layers and kind of additional and the monitoring, right? So that if someone is using the hardware from, let's say, Malaysia, maybe he's on vacation there, right? We have a few listeners in there at the moment, but maybe it's also an attacker. You don't know unless you actually monitor and observe.
Yes. Yeah. Great answer. Thank you so much, Candid. And I guess all the questions are done and answered. Yeah. I am waiting for a couple of minutes, but I guess we are done. Yeah. Thank you guys for being here. You were wonderful hosts. I am really, Picos is really, glad to have you here today. And again, thank you so much for accepting our invitation to speak at this webinar. So for, being wonderful and answering every questions in a, perfection level.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Great discussion. And yeah, I think the two comments to make is don't give up the fight, right? As in, even with AI, we can still block it. So it's not the Terminator Skynet yet. So do something. And as Paolo said, right, validate it. Hoping is not a good strategy. Validate so you know what your technology can do.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Stila.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.